Welcome back to the Pursuit of Property podcast. We have episode 2 with Valentin Pits. Valentin, thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm doing good. Yeah. Healthy, alive, good. So,
yeah? Business is crushing it. You're doing well.
We're doing, yeah.
Dude, that's awesome.
Yeah. Doesn't matter the market. We're going.
There you go. And so, I mean, it's a weird time in the market right now. We wanted to bring you in today to talk a little bit about, not only how you decide a market and that kind of stuff. We want to just kind of hear you talk a little bit. And so if you don't mind kind of introducing yourself a little bit, I'll introduce you. You're an investor. You have your license here in town. You're a business owner. You're somebody who's been in the business for a few years. You've got a lot of experience. But can you tell us who Valentin was before real estate? How did you get into the biz?
Sure. So I've always been an entrepreneur pretty much my whole life. So before this, I've been full-time now, about 4.5 years full-time since 2015. Man, time flies. But before that, I had another company. I had a commercial janitorial company, had about 30 employees or so. I've had that for about 10 years, and really I got bored and saw, I seen the glass ceiling there, and it just didn't get me going anymore. So I had starting from 2010, 11 or 9, 10, 11, and 12, I bought one property each year, not knowing what I was doing, but they were pretty decent buys. So real estate always intrigued me. Matter of fact, ever since I was a kid, living in our apartments, I didn't know what real estate was, but I remember clearly my mom paying rent, seeing the rent receipt. It was like $320 a month, and I was just like, wow, I'm counting the units. Mm-hmm. Like if one day I have apartments, like that's crazy. Everyone's paying them. So like I've always loved real estate and was intrigued with real estate. So getting into this, it was basically sporadic. I sold my company, and I've never done a flip in my life. I just bought the properties your conventional way, but I was just like really excited to get into this and went head on.
Was there something that made that final decision? You said it was sporadic, but what was kind of that tipping point that made you jump full into real estate?
You know what? Honestly, I was actually a buddy of mine. I've known him since he was like 13 years old. He was working construction for a house flipper down in Southern California. We reconnected on Facebook, and we were just talking. And he was kind of like sick and tired of doing the same thing himself. And I know him, and he's really good with just everything, construction and running crews and things like that. So I think that was my big push, because I know my strengths, and I also knew his strengths. And I said, if we joined up together, we could really do something here. And he was all in too. So I think that helped get me through and go full time.
What'd you take? I mean, you mentioned you owned a custodial business for 10 plus years, 30 plus employees. What has been helpful taking from that business in order to help you jumpstart and now have all this success in real estate?
Oh, that is a great question. Actually, there's a lot of little things that I took from that business that helped me out here. Honestly, like how to like kind of pick my criteria and have a business model, but also just little details. Like quick story is we would have grocery store accounts like the St. Mart, stuff like that. We would strip and wax a floor. That's when you take it, you strip it all the way down to its bare and re-wax it and buff it. So I would have my guys there overnight. I'd come in the morning and I'm like, man, this looks really good. So I'm proud, I'm happy. The owner comes in and like I'm getting nothing from him. He's just like looks disappointed, which disappointed me. I'm like, what's going on? Yeah. So I asked him, what if there was a problem, and he points out, he's like, look in the corner, I see, some dark spots. There's a line there. I'm like, so at first I was like offended. I'm like, all this work and you're like nitpicking me, and then I was like, so that I brought into our business. So now, like for example, talk about models. When I flip a house, I don't try and save the vanities. I don't try and save the toilets. No, it's like, because I know that if you're going to do something, like do it all the way, because people are not going to notice necessarily what you did. They're going to notice what you didn't do. So that's helped me a lot, is just to go all the way in, do it the right way. And then you kind of gain traction, and like people start knowing, oh, that's our company, we're Building Dreams Redevelopment. It's like, oh, that's Building Dreams Home. Like, we know they do a good job. Yeah. So that's helped, like the little details. And I kind of took it from my past experiences and brought it forward.
That's awesome. So you really take pride of ownership when you do those flips, and you really look at that detail, and you really go all the way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people can see that. For people that haven't seen your flips, they probably don't know what that looks like, and they don't know what the end product is, but it's very polished finish, and it's done to the nines. But you said when you got started, you started with conventional purchasing and things like that. What was it exactly that you started with? Like when you got out of the custodial business, you had time. What did you do?
Yeah. So I don't remember because I hated having time, right? My wife now, my then girlfriend, she was like, I used to like, love, like we'd have, I was quote unquote semi-retired, right? She's like, we used to have all the time in the world. I'm like, man, that was like so bad for me. So really I was just, I was like, my time was like thinking about what I'm going to do next. I went through like, should I open a chain of like barbershops? Cause like, I'm like, God, they charge for it. I just went through like every business possible, like what would suit and fit me before I'm like, it's real estate. It's always been real estate. So it was, yeah, it was that.
That's awesome. And so you go in there, as you got into flipping, right? So you mentioned that, we had lunch before this, and you mentioned that you weren't really into flipping because you didn't like necessarily, like, you didn't watch the TV shows and you didn't think that was like what you wanted. What was it that led to flipping exactly? I mean, there's so many aspects of real estate. What led to that?
You know what? It was, so I'm ADHD, like, so it was like really my personality, it fit my personality. Like every day's different. There's always a problem. I love solving problems. It was the excitement. Yeah, it was not like I wasn't inspired by a TV show. But really it was just to start something like out of nothing and just to try and scale it and challenge myself. I love like growing personally. Like, what can I do that's really just gonna keep challenging me, like just stimulate my creative side of things? And it was real estate. So when I jumped into it, me and my partner, I jumped in really rough. I knew nothing, and that's kind of like my personality anyways. It wasn't like planning, taking a few seminars. It was like, this is cool. Like, I know we can do this. It was like just assessing it really quick. So I ended up getting a conventional, I didn't know anything about private money, anything about anything at all, anything. So it was kind of like, how can I get a loan? Wells Fargo gave me a conventional loan on a house that I don't know how it appraised, but it did. Actually, it appraised 10,000 short, so I ended up splitting the difference with the seller, and paid 10,000. With 5,000 more than what I should have. Yeah. It was a bad purchase all the way together, right? All the ways. 2-story house, 2,300 square feet with a pool. That was our first flip.
Can you walk us through kind of how that deal went? Like, how did you find it?
So I knew a realtor. He's a good friend of mine now. I told him that this is what I want to do, and he didn't really know about flipping and investment stuff, but he's like, I'll try my best. I mean, so this house was a buddy of his that he listed it. The agent didn't list it, but he knew it was on market. So he took me there. Before that, we looked at a few other houses, and we got outbid. So in this case, I had a conversation with my business partner. I said, look, we have to get something and just do it, right? I'm not in the business to lose money, and I don't feel we will, because we're gonna like analyze all our stuff. But even if we break even, dude, I told him, as long as like we get it done, like people pay thousands and thousands of dollars for their education. I'm like, if I even make a few bucks, like this paid for my education. Like we're gonna learn something, and then like with that I just go running. Like, let's just do it, man. And he agreed. He says, like, we got to do something. I agree. So we decided to just go in all in. Matter of fact, one of my very good friends and mentors now put an offer on that house too, and he still gives me a hard time because I came in like I didn't really know him that well then, but he came in and he offered like 90,000 or something for the house. I ended up buying it for 145, I believe, and he just still gives me a hard time. He's like, you overpaid for that, and I'm like, I thought you were like, why are you offering so low? I don't know anything.
Right, you don't know.
In retrospect, he had a solid offer. Like, I way overpaid, but yeah, no, we got in there, and my business partner too, he was just ready to get his hands on stuff. So we both had like a desire just to go. And so we started demo. We went. It was crazy. It was like we went through everything from squatters to like everything there. Matter of fact, one time we were a little bit halfway through with the house, and he's like, Valentin, I don't think we're gonna make it. Like, I'm way over budget, because he liked to put. We were learning about each other too, and he wanted to maybe over improve, and I don't blame him. And I'm like, I'm just like cheap. I didn't have a model necessarily. I'm like, man, dude, we can save this and save that. So we learned a lot, but we were way over budget. He's sitting on the floor, and I'm just like trying to do this motivational speech thing to him. Like, diamonds are, brake pipes, or or pressure make brake pipes or make diamonds, dude. We got this. And it was like we're just like eating cold pizza on the floor, and it was just like, but we're like we just pressed through, man. And I'm like, no matter what, we're gonna finish it because we have to. Like, there's no way we're gonna walk out of this, right? So, and the loan was in my personal name too. So I'm like, I am like,
you need to.
To get this done.
Yeah.
So, and that's what we did. But then, man, poor guy. Like, I almost gave him a hard time multiple times. After I seen the light that we were basically done, I went and found another property with my agent, and we were not even done yet. When I told my buddy, my business partner, he's like, I think he was ready to just like either choke me or walk away. He's like, that's it. Like, I want to quit. We're not even out of this. You're insane. Like, what are you even thinking? I'm like, dude, this is a business. Like, this is this project, and we're learning, but we got to lock in another one. And we have to prepare, because like, this is a business.
That's crazy. What did you take from that? When you walked away from that first deal, I mean, you had to have learned a lot.
Yeah. So I learned that that's not the way you buy properties. Number one, Wells Fargo will not give me any more money. So that's the number one lesson. And number two is like, I'm like, yeah, this is a business. So that being said, how are we going to run this business? So the questions started coming, and those questions needed answers. So I'm like, my big thing, and I had built my company to, the employees and the managers. I'm like, and I read the E-Myth Revisited, which was big for me to build out my other company. I'm like, we need to settle on a business model for this. I don't want to make a lot of decisions. That's why you have the Zuckerbergs, like one shirt, like decision making kills you. Like, sometimes I'll go home red-eyed, and it's like I didn't do any work with my hands, but it's like so many decisions. So I'm like, let's put in the hard work in now, settle on a business model, and then it's done. And then we don't have to think about every detail and the how and the what and the when. It's like, we know up front, this is how we operate, and that's how we go. So that was like such a big thing for us, is setting that business model, so how we're going to operate.
Yeah. What were some of the questions, the hard questions you guys had to ask yourself, each other, to kind of, obviously figure out what that was going to be and how your model was going to work?
Yeah. Sure. So we had that conversation about what our wants, our personal wants, and for the business needs. And I told my buddies, like, I want this to be a business. I want to operate more on a volume and not do 4 flips a year. I said, and I believe for that reason, we can't use our own capital, like for rehab. Like, we just can't. We have to operate as a business. So we have to get loans for everything, for the purchase. And this is me. I didn't know anything. I just figured like we have to get for the purchase, for the rehab, and we'll call that like a cost of doing business, cost of goods. Like, I'm like, and if the property doesn't support paying for this money, then it's not really a good deal to begin with. So, and then if it's not that great of a deal, why would we put our own personal capital into this?
Right.
Exactly.
So it has to support an investor or investors in order for us. So like just settling on things like that, which didn't help, because now I'm having. I just talked to everybody who was in real estate, and then my realtor buddy at the time introduced me to my now friend and mentor, and then I talked to him and I told him what we're planning on doing, and then how I bought it, and he laughed at me, and that's cool. And after that, he's like, all right, well, because you got to talk, you got to speak up, and so he's like, I have this, I have this doctor. He's too expensive for me, but he loans money, and maybe you could talk to him. He may work. I'm like, that's all I need. So I talked to this private money individual, and that was a whole thing in of itself, because I didn't know what the terminology. I didn't know private money, hard money. I didn't know anything. Like, this guy loans money. Okay, like, what do I do? So I'm like, the day before I met him, I'm on Google. And I'm like reading LTV, like, what the fuck is this? LTARV after repair. So I have to guess how much this is. Okay, like, so I'm like trying to memorize this terminology about private money or hard money lending. And so then I meet him, and one thing is like, again, I'll tell anyone whatever they want to hear. So I decided, I'm like, you know what, let me just take him to the project we have now before he laughs at me. And so I give him the whole dog and pony show, and this is where we're at, and we're almost done, and just what I know, because I don't know much, but what I do know, I told him. Then we met at that property, and then like not to, the big thing for me is like to not be deterred. Like he told me, he's like, all right, first thing, so my loans, and I'm at 70, I think it was 75% LTV. Okay, LTV. So you want me, so you're expecting, you want me to come in with 35% down? Yeah, that's the way I make my loans, and so that's why I stress now about business model. When I settled with my partner about not coming in, I just knew that much. So politely I told him, that doesn't work for me, and the reason why, and he probably thought like, this kid's insane, like why is he like, doesn't work for you, but he, his good friend referred him, so he's giving me the time. So, but I'm telling him this is why, and I'm giving him my whole business plan, but just talking, and I'm like, and I don't want to only do 4 flips a year. This is why I can't put money, down, because I want to scale it. I want to do 20, 30 flips a year. And you could see, we can get stuff done. And I just gave him this whole conversation. And then he looks at me and he says, well, that's just the way I lend. And then, he told me how much points. It was stupid. It was expensive. 3 points, 13% or 12%. So I'm like, all right, 1 point is 1%. We're not talking about a excessive amount of money. Because I told him I already have a house locked up. It was like at 60, 70,000, like 70,000. So I'm like, I'm fighting for my model, right? I'm not just gonna agree to him. I'm like, what if I give you like an extra percent? What if I paid you 13%? And then he was like, 13%? And I think I ended up paying him like a point more because it was our first one. And he agreed to give me 100% of it. I'm like,
really?
All right, this works. We plugged in our numbers. It's still penciled out, so I'm like, this is a good deal. And so like I said, I fought for what I thought my model was, and I believe he believed in me. He's seen the fire in my eyes, and at the same time, I did see he was kind of like, probably like, I'm gonna take a risk, like I'm gonna gamble on this kid. He looks like he'll do something.
Yeah.
But I may lose my money. But okay,
right.
And he agreed. So that was like the start of it, and then from there it was just like, securing the third property and just never looking back.
And you turned it into a real business that way.
Turned it into a real business that way.
Can I ask you? You keep bringing up that you wanted to do this big scale and you wanted to flip 20, 30 homes. How did you know? Why did you know flipping was what you wanted to do? I mean, did you get distracted with like the idea of wholesaling and like buying rentals and stuff like that? You already had rentals, right?
I already had rentals, and at that time, foolishly at that time, rentals were boring to me. I didn't know, and I didn't know you buy many rentals. I just bought them at 20% down. I put 20% down on all of them. And I knew they were good, but I didn't know enough. I didn't know what wholesaling meant. All I knew was flipping. I knew it was fun for me. It was exciting for me. I love like negotiating with sellers, just the whole process. So it was just fun for me. So I started there, and fast forward like maybe 2 years in, I figured that's maybe not the best, because talking to now that individual, my friend, he sat me down and he told me, what are you doing? And I told him, he said, yeah, you're having fun and you're making a lot of money, but all you do is you just have a high paying job. That's it. I'm like, that kind of hurt. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, what I mean is you're just a high paid individual. And what happens when you can't flip, or you don't flip, or you won't, and then everything stops. He's like, you have 4 rentals. Did you do a net worth sheet? I'm like, no. And then I ended up doing it. I'm like, damn, everything, like my little net worth I had was in my rentals, not on the flip. So that was like so huge for me to be like, all right, not only am I going to flip, but I'm going to start buying rentals too. And I decided to, on the rental side at least, to do that on my own without partners. But that was like a huge eye opener.
Yeah.
And then furthermore, flipping, I would just go in, offer cash. If it didn't work, that's it. I can't buy the house. Now, by adding other things like rentals, I added other strategies. So that allowed me to go in and make deals happen without cash, creative stuff, subject to stuff, and owner carries and things like that.
Yeah. And we were talking a little bit before this too about how a lot of people in this business stretch themselves too thin, and that's why they don't see a lot of success, right? How did you know once you got down the flipping, you were doing really well with it? I mean, you mentioned the conversation that you sat down and you had with your mentor. If somebody's coming into this business and they've had success in their one niche, how do they know when it's time to start expanding into different things? What would be your advice for that?
That's a fair question. I would say, again, taking the time, a little bit of time before you actually just go all in, to ask yourself key questions. What is it that you're doing? Why is it that you're doing it? How are you going to do it? And answer those, and then that will kind of give you the blueprint of which route you're going to go. So, for example, I now I define myself as a problem solver and a coach, right? But at the time, I am a real estate investor. And what that means is, furthermore, it means flipping houses and acquiring rentals. No wholesaling. And still to this day, I don't wholesale. I will give out stuff to very close people. I'm like, hey, why don't you take it? I don't wholesale. I'll put something as is on an MLS just because I have my license. But I know what I am. So knowing what you are exactly and focusing on that until you get really, really good at it, then you can have extensions of that. So as you said, I have my license. When I got my license, I got it for a specific reason, which is to control the process my way. Everything's in-house, so we want to control everything our way. And I didn't want to call an agent and say, hey, let me call my assistant, and I'll check with so-and-so. Like, no, I want to talk directly to the lender. I know what to ask, what I want to know. I want to talk to the agent. So that was a specific reason for myself and for my company only. And right off the bat, I said, I am not a realtor, and I'm not a realtor. I'm not an agent. I don't work for commission. I don't take out listings. So when people ask me, should I get my license? I say, not until you know what exactly you do and what you are. Because then that could cause more confusion. You're going to start and try and get listings. Are you working for commission, or are you working to acquire a rental portfolio or to flip? You can't be everything to everyone. You're going to be nothing. You got to be really, really good. And then you could extend out from that.
And so you went through and you got your license, you got your company almost vertically integrated. So you had it sounds like you did the private lending you had already figured out in-house. Then you get the flipping in-house. You have your partner who helps manage the flip. Then you actually sell the home and all that. You had to tighten that ship, right? Before you made that leap to start collecting rentals, or how did that transition work?
Yeah, no, you know what I did? I tightened that shit up. Oh, shit. I tightened that shit up. Really good, really tight. Because we went through more growing pains, or not growing pains, more models, right? So how are we going to do a flip? Like, at first it was like, what can I get from Flooring Liquidators and Home Depot? And I'm like, no, this is not the way. We need to. So I hired, I for lack of better terms, I barely dressed myself today. I don't have style. I know that. So knowing what you don't know, so I'm like, you know what, dude? It's just me and you, and we're just two guys. We suck. So I hired an interior designer, and then working with her, it was hard, because she's like, I have a great deal, $450 a square foot for this floor. I'm like, damn, my budget's like $130 a foot. What do you? Right. So like that whole thing, going through that, and then she designed a house for us that is a finished product at our cost. So I'm like, all right, one less thing to worry about. We don't worry about flooring. It's this floor, this cabinet, anything under $250. I put granite. Anything above $250, I put quartz. That's it. Zero decision making.
That's the only decisions you make on the small details.
Yeah, so that frees up like so much more, not only time but brain power. I get to actually like solve real problems instead of picking flooring. I don't give that's not my thing. We make a beautiful product, a quality product, but my thing is not like making everything custom, and that's cool. But like for me, it's like systemizing everything. And taking away decisions. The more decisions I can take away, I'm like, this works and it sells, and it's like, like Apple products, they're all the same. It's like I'm gonna just do that, and then if people love it, why am I gonna tweak it? And so that helps like a lot as far as like increasing your volume.
Wow. So with everything, you making these tweaks, getting everything systematized, what's next for you? What do you have in the pipeline? What are your goals now that, you've got this full running ship? It sounds like it's running well. We know it's running well. You're doing a lot of business. So what's next? What's next for you?
I think now it's stepping back a little and looking at what extensions can I add. So I did increase like my desire to get rental properties in the last 3 years. My son was born about 2 years ago, and that really pushed me to like. So it's to just increase my rental portfolio, but the smart way, all right? So I don't do things for the number, right? My thing is like every rental has to, again, so to build a model and then follow. So like every rental has to stand alone on its own, meaning this one is not feeding this one, is subsidizing that one. It's like they're all standalone rentals. Like, I may have whatever it is, but I don't need the number as long as I have quality stuff in there. That I could leverage too, and really just to sharpen like my skills, and like for our business, it should be super fluid and like lean. And so because for flipping, it's just me and my business partner. That's it. We get to just sit down and you know what I'm seeing, dude? It's this. Like, let's do this, and like right now we're just gonna sell and buy here. So like, it's always to follow the market and adjust to it, but ultimately it's just to get that rental portfolio up really high, build out my relationships. That's another thing. Instead of like going wide, I just go really deep on my relationships, and taking care of people, man. Like I have a duty and obligation to everyone, but like mainly like my investors to take care of their money and things like that. And as we do that, we get more trust, and that's not something like light that I take. So it's to build out those relationships. So when there is a time to capitalize on the market downturn, I'm in that position to really go. And if I scale my buying down because I think something's going to happen this year, like when that time happens, I'm going to double down and just like really pick up a lot of good stuff because I built the trust for my investors. So when money's really tight, I'll have access to the money that I need to do what I need to do. And ultimately, for me, I don't know, there is no ultimate because I get off on this stuff. Like I enjoy it. Like the thing of retiring is like death to me, a very slow death. So I don't have an ultimate. It's just to just learn and grow and like just become this monster of knowledge, like just to try and acquire that stuff. But there's no retirement for me. Like I don't know, all right, to retire to expire. Like I get bored. But yeah. So like there's no. I do have goals and benchmarks, but I try not to limit myself either and say, all right, I'm going to do this to retire, and I try and trick myself. Right? And I know I'm fooling myself. I'm like, I want to do this to have like financial freedom, and that is cool because they'll have an option whether if I want it or not. So that's why I'm doing it. But financial freedom, to really do more of what you want, what you need.
You love what you do. It's very apparent to anybody who talks to you. You clearly like what you're doing. You enjoy the process of it, the learning, the mastery, the tightening, everything, and going and analyzing and changing. As you've continued to do that, I mean, what are some of the things that you're doing to constantly keep an eye on the direction you're moving? Because you seem to me like somebody who you have so many different opportunities. How do you keep structured in what you're doing? Because even now, I mean, you have so much knowledge. You could go do almost any sector of real estate. What's leading you to keep going down this route and continuing to flip and get rentals and things like that?
Because I do have like ADHD, like that's so easy for me to do that, and that's what I've been doing that before, and I was never really able to get traction because I'm like falling into that trap, like you said, doing this, doing that. So like now it's like knowing yourself. The older I get, like try to know myself, and build off of my strengths, and like you just said, is doing it for the love for the art. It's like an art. Like I'm not an artist. I'm like super non-creative in the real world, but like with this, to me, this is my art. Like this, so like. I can't say I don't do it for the money, but I don't do it for the money. Like money's a benchmark. Like I'll do my net worth sheet at the end of the year, and that's like keeping a score. Like if it's going down, I'm like, okay, I pretty much am sucking at whatever I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
Do I do something else or improve? But if it's going up, I'm like, all right, I'm doing good. So it's just a scorekeeper. So another thing too is like to keep money in its perspective. Like money, what it is. Like I love like that detachment of it. It empowers you actually. So like a lot of times, like I don't do anything for money. So like if you come in and say like, put your fist down and say, do this, or because I'm paying you, like no, like I don't do it for the money.
Mm-hmm.
I do it for so many other things, for the craft, for really for helping people, for growing. For I love growth, and money then follows. But like detaching yourself from that as the main purpose, well, it's really served me well at least.
Yeah.
So now I'm not like chasing everything for the money. Like yeah, I'll be a listing agent. Oh, buyer's agent, which is the worst, by the way. Don't be a buyer's agent. But, and a buyer's agent, and then because I have my license, I'll do this, and I might as well get my contractor's license, and I'll take a few. Like my partner, he doesn't take any jobs outside of us either. We're the same. He's not going to do like jobs. Yeah, I'll do your house, for a sweet old lady. No, $5,000. No, I don't have time. We're focusing on building what we're building, and because we know that if I direct my efforts there, that I believe is the potential for the most growth. Not taking a job or a commission. That's just you get paid and it's done. I want all the advantages, the equity, debt paid and everything.
Yeah.
So what's the biggest piece of advice you would have for somebody, who's coming in and not necessarily doesn't need to be in real estate, right? I mean, you ran your business for 10 years before you even got started. But it's apparent that choosing the right business model and staying focused and at the beginning necessarily going deeper instead of wider. What's your biggest piece of advice or biggest takeaway for somebody brand new who may be wanting to get started in real estate? What would be your takeaway for them?
To break away from like break your own barriers. Like I just don't understand sometimes like when people say, well, this is my goal, but I got to start somewhere and I have to start here and work my way up to here, and then when I have enough money, like really, like there are no rules, right? There are laws and things we need to obey and moral compasses we need to follow, but there are no rules to this. There's no such thing as like you got to start from the bottom and get to this. Like stop that and be a person of action. Like I've never went to a seminar in my life of like the flipping seminars, is because like I love gathering the everything and just like and then taking action. That's what gets me off. But there are people who are like they need more information. So like there's enough information. Just take it in, process it, take action. There's no starting here. There's no age. I'm young. If you got a good deal, you got a good deal. Like I have people all the time asking me like about private money. Well, how do I get private money? And they come from backgrounds that they know. Wait, I grew up poor. I didn't know anyone with money. Like they know people with money. Mm-hmm. Once you ask them, well, again, those barriers. It's like, all right, like stop. You're not begging for money. This is capitalism, right? This is capital. Like you're doing a service by making their money more money, and they're doing your service by. So it's like you're building off each other. So I guess to summarize, is like break all the stuff that you think you should do, and just freaking do it. And then it's all based on the deal. You got a good deal. Doesn't matter if you're 18, killer deal. You'll get anyone's attention. Like, oh yeah, that's awesome. But here's the money. Mm-hmm. So just like focus on getting really good at what you do. Nothing else.
That's a perfect tip. I really appreciate that. And we appreciate you coming on the podcast. I mean, you shared a ton with us before the podcast, and you've managed to regurgitate it even more here and be able to explain more. So we appreciate you even being willing to come on.
Oh man, thanks for having me. I love what you guys are doing. You guys are inspiring to me too, like at doing what you're doing at your age. I'm so excited to see you guys grow, and sorry I broke your light here, so don't blame me for that.
You're all good.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Valentin.